Hi, welcome. In this video, I wanted to respond by way, again, this whole situation involving Dolly and another dog, Burgh, where you've had trainers on social media saying, oh, look, Dale rehomed two dogs, and this proves that his method has flaws. It proves that he doesn't know what he's talking about. It proves they're trying to leverage the situation. And you see this in the mainstream dog training world. You see all this virtue signaling, picking what I call the low-hanging fruit with certain situations involving like outright dog abuse. But again, talk about how these trainers aren't willing to confront the real issue. And the information I put out, okay, it's solid, okay, in terms of what defines a process. So this whole situation, which I want to talk to, this situation involving, finding Dolly another home, okay, dealing with the reality of a circumstance, okay, which is separate and apart from a method. Because I want to talk through this. So again, I apologize. I mentioned I was going to talk about this during my recent podcast with Mark DeBose. You kind of I didn't approach it, but that's why I want to do the video here to properly talk through this situation. And this goes beyond just me trying to defend myself. Okay, this is just about talking about people's situations sometimes, which I've dealt with. Considering that, understand that it's not just about the dog; it's about the person. Okay, it's like you're the key. Okay, it really falls on your role. Okay, for things to transition properly. Okay, so here you have Murdoch putting up a video saying, "No wonder he hid this from everybody." Now, here's the thing: there's nothing to hide from anybody. I talk about my life's an open book. Even this video here is part of my member area option, where I'm showing actually part of my member area option. I put videos in there going behind the scenes in terms of the method. Okay, so it isn't about hiding stuff. It's about I have a ton of extra videos in my member area, and they're exclusive to people who want to go deeper in the process. Okay, so, but here's the thing with Murdoch. So he had somebody that a person that was part of the member area. So because understand something here, a lot of this has to do with trainers who are just they're just angry. Okay, you see that bitterness, you see that anger, right? And you see it all over the dog training community. It's like trying to do something or anything to try to say, well, watch this hand, don't watch this hand. And so it's always about trying to gain some sort of traction to score points to find some way. And that's why I talk about this whole thing about personal attacks, personal attacks. So and I have no problem with again talking through it. So what I'm going to do here in this video is like, okay, no problem. I'll talk through it. So here understand the videos here with Dolly. And so a little backstory here, because again, it's understand when I talk about people's circumstances, what people go through. This is where, and I'm going to go back even further with explaining the whole Burgh situation, because there's trainers on there say, oh, Dale rehomed two dogs. Well, I'm like, what two dogs are you talking about? Oh, Burgh. Well, if you go back and watch the videos, Burgh was an Australian Shepherd, okay, that I had actually was working with, okay, with a person here in St. Cloud. I had Burgh, and the first session, first session, I walked into the house and I spoke with the owner's father-in-law. I walk in the house, and he said, "Go in," and he's in there. I go in, and out comes Berg spinning around the corner down the hallway, coming down. And Berg, I yelled out, I said, "Hey, because it's just me and Berg now." Berg's like rushing me. Berg comes, circles me, and bites into my wrist. Okay, not hard. Okay, didn't I wasn't injured. And then the owner appeared, got a hold of Berg, and Berg was so intense. Okay, beautiful dog. I mean, I love Berg. Beautiful dog. Berg. It was so intense that first session was just him facing the other way with Berg, and Berg just trying to turn and just roaring and just really intense, super intense. Okay, and so I was like, okay, I told the guy, I said, hey, I'll help you. Okay, this is how it needs to go down in his situation. Okay, there's a lot of chaos, a lot of stuff going on between him and his family and over this dog and stuff. And so I told him what needed to happen. Didn't hear from him. I was down in Tennessee. I get a phone call from him saying, Dale, Berg, I'm taking Berg to a board and train to, okay, what I asked, okay, what is, this guy's really was impulsive. Okay, what's the training? Oh, they use treats, and I just said, listen, I just steer clear. I'm going to be back. I can help you. And he just didn't, I just basically, that ended the conversation. I could tell he was just going to do what he's going to do. But then fast forward like a month, it was like a month or so later after this board and train happened, I get a phone call saying, Dale, I'm taking Berg down to the shelter. I just want to call because I put a lot of money in the Berg, and, I just want to call. And if you want him, you can have him. And I'm like, because I know I knew the situation with Berg, okay? It wasn't like Berg's going to go to a certain person and everything's going to turn out okay. I talked to my wife because that's the thing. You have to, bring a dog in. And it's like, and I said, bring him here. So he brought Berg here, okay, and that started the journey with Berg. And you watch the videos of me, training Berg. But at that point, okay, that wasn't like a situation where like I already had Paulie, Berg, high intensity dog, great dog, but my my long term thing wasn't necessarily to keep Berg. Okay, it wasn't about making money off Berg whatsoever. It was about saving Berg. And so it was a fostering situation for me. And so I spent months, you watch the videos. And it lined up to an associate trainer that's helping me at the time say, Dale, I have this guy that just lost his Malinois, high drive dog. He's like a surfer dude from, California. And, I mentioned about Berg and I said, bring him here. Came here, met the guy, super guy, and so it just worked out so that he met Berg. Berg was a great dog at that point. Okay, I turned Berg around, intense, but fantastic. And this just shows you. It's just like I reversed everything. Berg's like super great dog, and even at that moment, I love Burke. You just fall in love with you fall in love with dogs, but I just knew that I wanted, for me at that again at that time, it's kind of like a one dog person right then. I was like, okay, I wasn't really seeking out, but it just lined up. And so, but for this guy, again, I talk about restoration. I mean, it was just like Berg filled that hole in this guy who was grieving from the loss of his dog. And it was just like to me like a God moment. It was just like it just fit. And I gave Berg to him for free. I gave him extra training sessions for free, okay? Because to me it was just like that fit. And so the guy sent me updates. In fact, Berg is pictured on my association page. You'll see him standing up on top of a boat, California. Okay, um, and I get updates. Berg's doing great. So that whole situation. So understand that's number one. Okay, that's the rehoming situation that people are trying to say. Dale rehomed two dogs. Okay, it's ridiculous. See these trainers. See they don't care. They don't even take the time to research. It's just about I'm angry with what Dale's saying. He rehomed two dogs, and so it's just lies. Okay, I understand, but you could if they just take the time to go in, they'll see that whole situation. So that's why when people wonder why it is I have no time for some of these trainers who do those type of things, no respect, right? Because it's like they likely or may show grace going in. I'll talk about this going into a certain situation, depending on someone's circumstances. They might show that because it's them dealing with, but in the case of the dog training world, the way it is, it's like they're on attack mode. Okay, it's just like I'm not going to show. I'm not even going to check into the situation with Berg with Dale. I'm just going to use that to try to leverage twist that. That's what Kevin Murdoch's doing, and some of these other trainers that keep bringing this up. I just want to twist that. Now, fast forward here, going into the whole Dolly situation. Okay, and backstory here with Dolly is that and Paul, I had Polly for years. Polly's my helper dog. You can go on to my videos. Dolly was a rescue from Tennessee. She was just wandering the streets. Okay, took her in, and she was intense. Okay, so got her role changed. Um, Dolly was with us for like 12 years. She's on a lot of my videos. Love Dolly. Dolly passed away. At that time, it was just like, um, you know, uh, again intense because at the time too that was transitioning into my mother-in-law and her uncle okay lived with us for 5 years and a situation there because this plays into this whole Dolly situation we basically a certain point, we're like home care workers, okay, home not workers, but because it's family. But we, did a lot of stuff because our uncle was like basically bedridden at a certain point. He passed away. Um, his health just started deteriorating. He had a lot of health issues. Passed away in our home. I was doing a lot of home care for months. The bed baths. I was doing all the stuff because that's what you do as a family. So I was trying to juggle dog training and everything else. But then her mom living with us for 5 years, same thing. Health started to decline at a certain point, and it turned into a hospice situation on top of that. Now, I'm not going to go into all the this is like personal, right? That's why I talk about personal stuff where you go through challenges. Anyone's gone through challenges in life, whether it's a loss of a family member, um, a divorce, there's life circumstances that happen. And you're together as a couple, okay? And the stress and the grief, all those things all factor that stuff in. Well, at the time when on just during that time, so her mom passed away, and again, thinking again, trying to fill that hole, okay, emotional decision, because we talked about having Polly pass away, so getting a dog at some point, but it was kind of like the timing of that, okay, so having, my wife had picked out, she went to the shelter on her own. I was doing something else, and I was just like, she's like, Dale, can you trust me? I said, sure, I trust you. And the Chihuahua is gonna be intense, but I brought Dolly home and Chihuahua and Malinois mix. So I knew right away this is gonna be friggin' intense. Okay, I just knew it. Not bad because here's the thing: is it's I talk about the method. Okay, I talk about how to engage, but it's still about people. Understand that I tell people all the time: if someone's dealing with a lot of stress in their life, putting that structure in place, the crate, and just go through that journey. But there's situations that can be overwhelming. Okay, and I'll use the example. I remember once I went up to Orlando helping a lady with her very intense German Shepherd, and her dog was so intense. It was like forward aggressing. I mean, you could barely even take it out of the crate, and just this moving this dog forward. It was super intense. And she loved her Shepherd. But here's the thing to factor in. And then as we got talking, found out she's his cancer and going through chemotherapy at the same time. And all the stress from her family and everything going on. I'm like, I'm looking at this because here's the thing: is yes, the method um, is solid. Okay, I talk about the method and how it all lines up, and I talk about interaction based and how it works. But it's still about the person. And so if the person isn't in a good place, okay, if they just don't have the capacity, and it's just a bad match, okay, and then factor in what the person's going through at the time. Well, in that situation, was able to rehome her dog because right away I was like, this isn't fair to anybody. Yeah, I could, and this is the thing. It's just like people can go in and just try to blame people or factor in to say, oh no, you have no. It's just like saying this is like so. There's moments, because you can have a solid method, but still factor in the circumstance because you have to take everything in the circumstance. It's the family situation. So for her, I was able to rehome the dog with the police department, which is perfect. Okay, the dog did great. It was a perfect, but still broke her heart. But you have to have those discussions to say, so the dog wasn't destroyed, and just like Dolly, the situation with Dolly, and talk about that. There was a lot of stress, and and so the intensity of the situation, and so this video here, he's showing I was transitioning in the process of trying to work this out in terms of the not the method itself solid, but it's about factoring in okay, um, the situation, okay, there are circumstances, grieving, and then sometimes you get kind of to a point where you're saying this is like when things start to happen in terms of the grieving process, it's like saying this is like not good. Okay, being there, support, all those things. But as a dog trying to transition a dog like Dolly, because here's the thing: so this video here was a video I had in my members area because that's the thing. Some of the videos I'll have in members area is extra content talking through. And yeah, I talked about a doll about the game of tug and then the peeing right after. Well, yeah, that's a sign. So I'm showing here's the sign. Okay, this is something giving people advice to what to look for, right? Still transitioning her in the process of that on the heels of everything else going on with with the death in the family. So I'm like, having that discussion saying this is like so I could, and I've done this before, in the past with certain dogs, being able to, you know, kind of for me, just me and Dolly alone, and there's ways always to deal how to deal with these type of situations, be able to take her to the kind of isolated, not isolating away from, but isolate, but try to separate her from my wife, okay, who's again very emotional, going through all this stuff. It's not a good max, and no fault of her own. That's the thing. This is about blaming anyone. And so I could have took Dolly and separated Dolly, and then for just me and Dolly working out separately. But then I want to be there because it still brings that level of intensity where you're saying, is this the timing of all this? What's happening? Does this even make sense? What's the wise decision here? Because it's not just about me that way. It's about me being there to support my wife and to be able to work there because we're in the middle, right in the middle of this stuff. And so, but I'm having this conversation because hopefully this maybe will help people understand that, it is still about appreciating people's circumstances. So at that time, we had the discussion together, say, well, it's better to find Dolly another home. With my, talk about this, my plans are still getting another dog. Um, but given our immediate situation, and then yes, finding the right person. So I found a person who having that discussion with them knowing, okay, what to do, how to do it. And so the transition for that, so to me, it almost played into a type of fostering situation. People can call it a rehoming situation. They can do whatever they want with this, but I'm just being transparent with understanding people's situations, and so she's doing great. Okay. Yes, she's in another home with another, Chihuahua. They're doing great. I get updates all the time. But the thing is, understand these trainers are some of them are so nasty that even in the I posted update because here's the thing: no matter what you do, understand this is where you have to kind of arrive in the dog training world. No matter how you explain things or what you do, they're always going to try to find something wrong with something. Okay, that's just how it is. Like murder on these people, they have no. It's just nasty. It's so nasty. I dealt with this with the Upton situation. He put videos up about my family talking. I was training my son to be a trainer was his thing. That wasn't true at all. He posted videos of me in medieval times, like mocking and scoffing with us with family. So he did the same thing. Murdoch. He went into my personal Facebook pictures, hijacked pictures, posted them, and so this is the nastiness. I'm thinking this is crazy. There's something wrong with these people. But all to say, I wanted to do a video to explain the whole Dolly situation. Dolly's doing great, and my plans for the future. Absolutely, I'm going to get another dog. Circumstances have changed. You move beyond certain things. We're like saying, okay, I'm ready. We're ready for that. Because here's the thing: Dolly's meant to be not just a helper dog, but a family pet. And so this played into with my wife, right? But at the time, it was just too much emotion, too much going on, and given the circumstances, and that's if I walk in the same situation, I'm going to show the same grace to people, right? But some of these trainers, they have no grace at all because they're just mad. So just want to put out there that's a situation with both those dogs. Both situations are different. Berg was a total fostering situation. I had no plans on keeping Berg, right? I want to find him, and that played out. That was a God moment. It filled a place in that guy's. It helped him heal the guy. So it always works out. Dolly, the same thing. The guy's Dolly loves Dolly, and they're him and Troy, they're best buds, in a good way, in the right way. Okay. And so this whole thing with my circumstance, yeah, it was a tough year. That was one of the toughest years I've ever been through, given, you know, um, two deaths in the family. Um, you know, Dealing with home care, dealing with turning into hospice. That went on a while. And so there's so much stress. You just, I mean, anyone that's been through that stuff can only imagine. I'm not trying to, and here's the thing, I'm not looking for sympathy. That's why I don't talk about this stuff, But if Murdoch had asked privately or whatever, say, Dale, I would have told him. So I don't put my life out there that way to appeal to people to say, feel sorry for me or whatever. You shouldn't have to do that anyway, a lot of stuff. So I'm just putting a video to explain it properly so people know what I went through. And so am I going to get another dog? Absolutely. and if it's a high drive, 1 percentile dog, great. That's what this system's about. But the situation with Dolly, yeah, very intense in the middle of a situation where it wasn't just about me. It's about my wife and support and just it was just it was just the timing of it. That's all. Not Dolly's fault at all. This is nothing to do with blaming Dolly or not. Dolly's a great dog and Dolly's in a great home. And so, that's it. It's not about blaming dogs. You hear some of these trainers on there, the first thing to do is blame the dog. Okay, no, sometimes it's about the situation and circumstance that you have to take into account, and that's all this is. But for him to go in and that's what he did, hijack and right, trying to spin stuff, always trying to spin stuff. That's fine. Like I said, I'm moving on here shortly. I won't be you won't hear me after a couple of videos here saying very much about Murdaugh at all. I'm done. I mean, people can you want to follow this guy, but know the real deal here with people. I mean, the dog training world is just full of this stuff, and there's so much anger and hostility. What are they angry about? They're angry about there's a type of identity crisis going on here. It's just like people, I put out here's the method, here's what it is, here's all the problems, here's what's going on. The dog training world's overrun. It's a mess, and that's the way it is. And that's the situation with the two dogs. That takes away nothing from that. You know, we can talk openly about that. But anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you have a great day.